Good morning, Tartaria, Australia. We're back. We're back with Michelle Gibson in our little series, part two. Good day, Michelle, and hey, Mr. Autodidactic. How's everyone today?
Good.
Doing great.
Doing great?
Been looking forward to this part
Excellent.
two.
So, Michelle,
Two.
just out of curiosity, tell us one interesting fact about your actual life.
Oh my gosh.
Mm. Where do you live? Where do you live in
No
America?
pressure. I live in Prescott, Arizona,
And what's that like? What's that
and
like?
it's where the old West meets the old world.
Mm.
So they're pushing the cowboy frontier, bang bang shoot 'em up narrative, world's first rodeo, all that good stuff here, and you're just surrounded by old world buildings and nobody sees it. They're just sleepwalking. There's people that are awake to it, but compared with the people that come through here, um,
I don't
no
even
clue
see
that it's
it,
not Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp and saloon fights in the old West, and
but it's all big masonry buildings.
it's such an old world town,
Oh
and
my
it's
God, show
Right.
the
us a
mud.
picture. Where's a picture? I want to see Arizona where you live.
Are you near Sedona?
Yeah, I live about a hour and a half drive going the long way,
Yeah.
which is what I prefer since I have a senior car and I don't want to go the short way, which is over a high mountain without any rail guards and no place to pull off if something happens to the car. So I've got to have some repairs made to my car before I go that way. So I take the long way on the interstate, and it takes me about an hour and a half to get to Sedona, but I'm still within driving distance. So let
Great.
me
Yeah,
I think I
bring it
let
went
up.
me
through a
Yeah.
bit of Arizona. Route 66 goes through some of Arizona, doesn't it?
It's desert,
yes,
yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
it's north of here.
And we drove through there, and they got some weird rock formations and big piles of what look like cut rock, and it's very strange.
Yeah, Cam and I've spent
It,
a lot of
it's
drives on those exact mountain roads with no guards and no railings
Yes,
and
yes, we've done
carrying
that a lot.
loads of
Towing a
wood.
massive trailer.
We've had some tricky adventures where we didn't die, thank God. Ah, yes,
Yes.
okay. This is Arizona.
Oh yeah, wow, look at that. That's definitely old world. Nice big tree.
so you,
Is that a tree stump in the
so
background?
you can see the tree stump there. That's
Yeah.
that's called Thumb Butte, but yeah, it's a tree, and there's a lot of those butte looking things around in the environment. That's the most prominent one, and it's the one that's identified with Prescott, but there's others in the area.
Yeah, so they're all Tartarian old round buildings in the middle of the desert.
Geez, no wooden buildings and wooden footpaths, eh? How
But
strange.
this is all masonry, but
Yeah, because
the message is, of course, this was built. This area was settled in our narrative around 1864, which was still
mm,
in the American Civil War. Prescott
yeah,
was the capital of the territory of Arizona when it first came online, and so they focused here on Prescott. There was gold in the area, and then all these things happened quickly, like they do everywhere else. But there's just these beautiful old world buildings downtown, and you've got the slanted streets.
Yeah.
This place is ridiculously
Mudflood.
hilly. um,
Yeah. I just drove from Melbourne to Queensland, like the outback way, and going through all these little towns of 1,000 people, and the old world buildings the whole way up.
always, always.
yes. So once you start seeing it, it's everywhere, and that's been
Mm.
how it's been in my life ever since I started waking up to this.
Yeah.
And that was between 2012 and 2016 is when I really first started to see what was coming out of the environment around me. And and so I was telling you about this picture in my background, which is in Arkansas, a place called Pinnacle Mountain State Park. And there's one place in the whole park that you can get a view of Pinnacle Mountain and clearly see that it is a pyramid. And there's only one place where you can get the view that's in the background of the other two, and that's the visitor center observation deck. But you really have to be there on a clear day. That was a decent picture considering it's overcast, but the other time I was there, it was cloudier than it was here. So outside of that, you wouldn't know that there were two more pyramidal shapes in the landscape.
How come they call it Arkansas and not Arkansas? Or why don't they call Kansas Kansas?
That's a good question. And the whole arc,
The arc of,
it's
the arc of what? Anas. What does Anas mean? Is that anything?
I don't really know, but James Tiburon, who was a geologist who channeled Metatron, and he brought in a lot of information about this grid, this Earth grid that I talk about a lot with the ley lines and the nodal points. Uluru is a nodal point. Sedona is a nodal point. He looked at Arkansas a lot, and he might have lived there. I'm not 100% sure about that, but he did have conferences in Arkansas, and that's one of the places that I first learned about this. And there's a lot of underlying crystals and things like that in the area, and it seems to have been a significant point on the Earth, whatever this place was before.
Well, Anas means duck.
Duck.
Duck or friendliness in Arabic. The friendly duck arc.
I like that. That's the nicest term we've heard for ages. Tell me, Michelle, are the pyramids behind you, are they privately owned or are they?
They're not even acknowledged. Pinnacle Mountain, one of them, is a state park, and then you can't even get to the other two.
Right. Yeah.
You just can't.
It's the same here in Australia. But one of my big dreams that I'm putting out there into the ether is to purchase land
yes,
with one of these unrecognized and unacknowledged pyramids on. We've got quite a few here in Australia. I reckon what do you reckon, Cam? Are we
especially, I think most are in
more?
Queensland. There's heaps. Remember, we caught the train to Rockhampton, and the whole way it was just pyramids and tree stumps coming out of this flat, scenery. So, there's heaps in Australia.
Yeah, so is a chance to buy and purchase land with an unacknowledged pyramid on at some point somewhere. I've got my eyes set on it just for the fun. That ones
do a
in our
Dr. Sam.
Exactly.
And it shouldn't be hard to do, like you're saying, because they don't call them pyramids.
Yeah.
They're not even going to acknowledge it.
Yep.
And if they do, they're like, well, these guys just like piled these rocks up in a pyramidal shape.
Like the Gympie Pyramid and all these, which they knocked over.
So they don't want this information out. I mean, you can't Google pyramids in Arkansas and find out a darn bit of information. So
yeah, well, that works in our favor for the time being.
Because we can hopefully buy the land that they're sitting on, because they won't acknowledge that it's anything there.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing place to have a burial ground with a freaking ancient pyramid right at its foot.
Jeez, what sarcophagus inside the pyramid?
Am I taking it to the next level anyway? Okay. All right, let's get back to where we were. So, but first of all, I just want to say before we even start this podcast today, we have 2 more live events before the end of this year. And the first one is Michelle Gibson on the 18th of September in Montville on the Sunshine Coast. And we're very excited to host Michelle for anyone who hasn't heard yet. And Michelle's going to be presenting a show called Not Quite Queensland. Was that it?
No. Mostly Queensland.
Mostly Queensland.
Not the same. Not the same.
Mostly Queensland. So that's going to be really. Do you want to say anything about it, Michelle?
Yeah, I'm going to bring the findings that I found all over the earth to your backyard and show you how exactly the same things are in Queensland, in Australia. And I'm going to bring in some other pieces of information, historical information, show how when Matthew Flinders was circumnavigating the continent of Australia and naming places after his buddies, like the Palau Islands and up in the Gulf of Carpentaria, that it really appears to have been taking place in the same period of time as like the Lewis and Clark expedition in North America, and other things were going on at the same time. DuPont was setting up in Delaware with explosives, and the Ames Shovel Shop was setting up in Massachusetts. And this is all the same time. It was 1803.
Wow. Need those shovels to dig out the railways, right?
And everything else.
And all the buildings.
They had stuff to dig out. And that's what our history is about. They're claiming the land. They're going to see what's there. They're coming up with their stories to explain everything.
Well,
And that's all really getting started in the early 1800s.
So it's a very similar timeline, right? You got 1776 for the creation of the US, or the USA, I should say. And we've got 1788, isn't it? So 12 years.
And then there's also 1717 was when the Premier Grand Lodge of England was formed, and 1741 was when the Royal Order of Scotland was formed within
Scottish,
Freemasonry.
right? Yeah.
And so I've kind of focused on the 1717, 1741, but it's all lands in the same time period. And then you have Adam Weishaupt forming the Bavarian Order of the Illuminati in 1776, the same year as.
Same year.
And there's rumors that he and Washington were the same.
Oh.
You know, that's out there.
Oh,
Now,
haven't seen Fit Flat Earth to do that one.
Can you look it up and verify it? No, but that's something that I've certainly encountered.
Yeah, right.
Over the years.
It's going to be a really big treat for Cam and I to actually be able to watch another researcher perform and present. Like, we just never get that opportunity. So I'm super excited to be part of the audience, in fact, Michelle, to watch you present this information. And I mean, I have to say, if you're an Australian truther, I would be making the effort. This is a very rare one-off event. I would truly be making the effort to get down. And if you do come down, then, you know, camp out or make it a weekend. And I haven't told Cam this yet, but I am suggesting we do a TA breakfast meetup on the Saturday morning. Michelle will be unfortunately having to go to the airport, but Cam and I'll be there, and just to have a casual breakfast. I think of anyone who's come up for the event would be really fun. So
yeah, we've got campgrounds at Mullaney. So bring, you know, your tent. It shouldn't be too cold by then. Yeah. And it's a nighttime event, only $55, guys. It's a bargain.
Yep.
Links below, by the way. Links in description, and also for Melbourne.
Yes. So we're super excited to host Michelle.
And I can promise you won't be disappointed. I've got a lot of information to share, and if nothing else, just really kind of see things a little bit differently from a different perspective, because I'm super interested in the railroads and the mining and how the two are interconnected. Like the railroads were brought online for the mining. I believe they were pre-existing, and I'm going to go around and show a lot of things, but one of the things, you know, talk about the bits of not only Australian history, but world history that don't make sense is, what the hell did they do with the railroads? Why did they take them out? You know, they tell us they built them, and then within a few short period of years, they were gone. And oil is part of the story, but if you look at things in terms of an energy grid, which is something that I've really been focusing on in my research, the railroads were part of that energy grid and part of that energy transfer.
So basically they're breaking the circuit.
So they had the railroads with the water courses, the canals, and the S-shaped rivers, the waterfalls. They were connected to this hydroelectric power generation. And you know, whatever happened to the grid, I personally believe that the grid was destroyed, and that caused a lot of what we see on the world today in terms of the earth changes and land, how the land changed. But all of that's been removed. I mean, if there wasn't something nefarious going on, why do all of that? Why not tell us the truth instead of giving us these ridiculous stories about them being built and then abandoned?
I think we know why they don't tell us.
And then they take the rail out and they become rail trails. But these are still energy transfer points, and I think we're getting into the energy harvesting aspect of it. And that's really what I wanted to focus on today, was how this free energy grid that we intuitively know existed, right? A lot of researchers have talked about this highly advanced civilization and this energy system that powered the infrastructure around the world. But what happened to that? And I believe that that was reverse engineered into what we know of as the matrix to harvest our energy for whoever's getting it. Something somewhere is getting this. And so I've chosen the topic of insane asylums to talk about today.
All right, let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, you get organized there, Michelle.
Insane asylums on the grid.
Yep, cool. So just before we kick off with the insane asylums, which Cam and I love that topic, it's one. I just also am going to promote one more. Our last live event of the whole damn year, everyone, is happening in Melbourne on the 31st to the 1st of November. In fact, it's a 3-day event. We're doing the live on the Saturday. We'll have dinner on Saturday night somewhere. On the Sunday, we've got Q&A, but this time, because it's our last live event and it's a big celebration of the community, we've got 4 guests, 4 of our favorite Aussies coming to join us. Rachel Vaughan, Dale Holmes, Nikki Penfield, and of course Paula, who is a very loved feature now of the Australian research scene. So it's going to be super great. They're all going to present for 30 minutes, and then we've got Q&A for the rest of the day. And Sundays have shapen up to be a really hearty experience where a lot of the sort of taking the information on and processing it overnight, and ends up with hearing wonderful community stories and questions and lots of tears, and it'll all be really beautiful. And then on the Monday, because it's a public holiday, because do you know, Cam, we've timed this show with Halloween. Can you believe
Oh, really? The old flop camera Halloween. Woo-hoo.
Talk about risking our odds. Melbourne, which is already dodgy, coupled with Halloween and the Melbourne Cup.
And the Melbourne Cup, the week after the Melbourne Cup.
Wow. But on the Monday, we are going to meet up at the Shrine of Remembrance. So if you've got your newspaper this edition, you'll see that we did the feature on Nikki Penfield's great theory about the Shrine of Remembrance. And she's going to be there leading us with the gang, and Dale and Rachel and Paula through the shrine. And hopefully this year on, we won't get shut down by police just for being in a group of people. We can go and see with our own eyes. So it's a 3-day celebration of everything to do with the TA community and research and everything we've stood for the last 6 years. It's our last one of the year. So if you're going to make the adventure, book it in and come and do it, guys. I want to sell this show out, and I want it to be our biggest party of the year. So that's my last promo for the day.
Yes.
All right.
Link below.
Let's go.
And I just want to give a shout out to Rachel. I suspect I probably won't get a chance to meet her in person this trip, but I really respect the work she's doing to raise awareness of the ley lines and healing the ley lines, because that's super important.
Yeah, ley love
super
down.
Important work.
Yep. She's doing beautiful work. Beautiful soul. Rachel is a beautiful soul, and we love her a lot. We got to spend some time with her in Adelaide recently. It was cool, Cam. Hey, it was really good.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, we really respect that one. Hey, all of our friends in this area, we love a lot.
Yeah. We're all, like you said before, Kelly, we're all doing our bit and doing the best we possibly can.
Yep.
And
getting that jigsaw done slowly.
Yeah. or till I own a pyramid.
It will happen.
It will happen. I agree.
So let me bring up my presentation here.
Yeah, let's go. So we kicked off last year. Last week. Geez, get your timelines right, Kelly. And last week we were talking about your very interesting observation about botanical gardens and industrial estates in every capital city. And today we're going to kick off with the sane asylums.
And again, I wanted to focus on examples of how this free energy grid was turned into the matrix with this example. And in the last one, I was looking at the comparison of the layout of Tokyo and Melbourne. And so this is a different aspect of it. But it's interesting because on the subject of turning the original free energy grid into the matrix, I'm going to talk about the 19th century insane asylums, specifically in this example, Kirkbride facilities, of which the Callan Park Hospital for the Insane in the Sydney area was one of two located outside of the United States, and the other one was in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. The rest were in the States, to my knowledge. The Callan Park Hospital for the Insane was a Kirkbride facility which was located on the grounds of Callan Park in Sydney's suburb of Lilyfield. On the lower left there. Thomas Kirkbride was a physician from Pennsylvania who was credited with designing a system of insane asylums starting in the mid-19th century that were said to have been constructed according to the Kirkbride plan across the U.S., and while numerous Kirkbride structures still exist, many have been demolished, partially demolished, or repurposed. Okay, so the classic example is this one.
Huge.
Why? That's what?
So this was the first building said to have been constructed with this plan in mind, and it was the New Jersey State Lunatic Asylum in Trenton, New Jersey. And this was said to have been constructed for the purpose of housing crazy people in 1848. And so, you know, I don't think it takes much to visualize this as an old world structure.
No.
It had a very different purpose originally. It would have had a purpose on the grid because all architecture had a purpose on the grid, on this energy grid.
It's got a very specific layout, hasn't it?
Yeah. And so, for example, Callan Park Hospital for the Insane first opened in 1878 and it hospital in 2008. And the former Kirkbride complex housed the Sydney College of the Arts from 1992 until 2019. And it still houses Writing New South Wales, which provides a variety of services to writers, and the New South Wales Ambulance Headquarters, and the Callan Park Landscaped Public Parklands are the third largest in Sydney. So getting back to them being repurposed, and everything I know about these insane asylums, there was nothing good going on in them.
Oh, not on the inside, no.
What's the etymology of insane?
Well, sane comes from the Latin word sanus, meaning healthy, sound in body, or rational of mind. So in would actually mean that you were healthy, sound of body and mind, wouldn't it? Yeah. So the actual opposite to what they tell us.
Yeah.
And I think it's fairly logical to conclude that they were not treating people necessarily with mental illness, more like they were housing and conditioning people that were
like us,
undesirables, you know, not going with the program, or maybe giants, or, you know, people that nonconformists, you know, people that needed to be re-educated.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things that we hear in the collective today about, you know, re-education and right thought and all that kind of stuff, where we're like, no. Not
No,
us.
I think that one of the
Um,
biggest things is to break the chain of information from generation to generation, right? That way they can change the story.
right. So again, the idea, and I'm going to go through a lot of examples here, as you'll see here in just a moment, that these old world buildings, which were part of the original energy grid, were being used for horrible things going on,
Experiments.
Hmm.
experiments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, I'll have some examples here. Suffering. These
Yeah.
places are haunted.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they
They're
had all
haunted
that.
across the board.
And they were very fixated on using electricity in to like see how electricity affected the brain, affected the body, the mind, what they could do with it. And then they had all that spirit technology as well, that weird technology where they were trying to contact the dead. And also I would add into that equation pregnancies, the like, putting any pregnant women in there, locking them up and, doing you know, terrible things to the fetus, the baby, the mother, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think they were on the level of concentration camp
Yeah.
kinds of things going on in there, and
Potentially, yeah. Connected to the
and
underworld.
yeah, and we haven't been told the truth about whatever was going on in there. And it's like with the Jesuits. We know the Jesuits have been part of this system, and if you look at any information that you can dig up about the Jesuits, they're godly missionaries, and all indications are that's couldn't be further from the truth.
Mm.
Wow.
And so,
Depends who
so
their
same
God
thing.
is, I guess, and what the mission is.
Yeah, yeah. So these same thing with these insane asylums. They were not there to take care of people and
No,
make them better.
And
There
did
was
we
no.
something very different going on, and and so with this being on the energy grid, this very low level of energy, consciousness, pain, and suffering would be going into the grid and affecting the whole the whole collective, because we're all connected. This whole civilization was connected by this grid, and I think it's one of the reasons it feels like this time of waking up to what's really going on has taken so long because of all the different ways they've been influencing our consciousness to keep it down and dulled. And this was one of those ways of how they used the grid to control us and enrich themselves and reach their goals. Because like I
100%.
talked about it in the last program, they've been mining the grid too.
Yes.
And let me
And
just input here. This is a statement from Donald Trump of the
Mm.
last couple of months, which is President Donald Trump has proposed reopening the insane asylums as part of a ministered strategy to address urban homelessness, public drug use, and severe untreated mental illness on city streets. His approach involves executive actions and federal funding shifts to encourage states to broaden civil commitment laws for involuntary psychiatric placement and reopen the insane asylums. So that was maybe
Involuntary,
like two
eh?
months ago that came out, just to bring it up to date.
And I thought he was going to
you know,
save the
and
world.
it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because unfortunately what we see in the world today is insanity being normalized.
Yes, yes, yes. It's
And
true.
so, what do you do when you have this Orwellian situation where there's a lot of mental illness, and everything in our world is feeding into that to accept that. And so it's just an interesting time, because whatever was planned for us is playing out, and we're seeing that now. We have front row seats to seeing everything that they had in mind for humanity, and the level to which people have been taken down in consciousness. So with the drug use and the crime and all the stuff that we see going on, instead of, let's say, a mud flood, whatever caused a mud flood, now people are just being attacked randomly by invaders, people coming from other countries and different way of life. And it seems like that whole purpose is to do to the West what has been done to these other countries, and we're seeing that play out right now.
I mean,
And so,
yeah, sorry. Go on.
go ahead,
Well, I was
Kelly.
just going to say, it's interesting. The very first connecting point he makes is to open the insane asylums to deal with homelessness. I mean, that's not the answer to homelessness, which, by the way, they created in the first place. How easily it is to link anything that's disenfranchised to being connected to an insane asylum. How easy it is to push all those things together under, I mean, I don't even know how
Yeah.
you would define an insane asylum, client. It was like, when people think about it, it's like really, really dangerously mentally ill. But that's not actually who ends up in insane asylums at all.
No, no. Well, in the past, in the last round of insane asylums, a woman who was divorced could be
Exactly.
termed insane and put in an asylum.
Exactly. A woman menstruating and
Yeah,
complaining about it could be
yeah.
in an insane asylum.
Mm,
So, yeah, it's a bit scary.
it's a slippery slope.
Yep.
Very slippery
Yeah, it
slope.
is a very slippery slope. It's a very slippery slope. And knowing what we know now that we didn't know before, like you made with that point, Kelly, it's like you hear insane asylums go, wait a minute. Those weren't good places.
No, not a good place. I mean,
Ever.
today you could get put in there for just questioning immigration, or questioning a racial term, like it's freaky actually to
Well,
even reconsider the opening of these. But I guess none of
mm,
them even really closed, did they? They just moved on to the next version of itself.
into
That's pretty much what
indoctrination.
happened. And
Mm.
I've got some examples of that. So,
Yeah, let's
um,
go.
so to use this example, the following screenshots are on a linear alignment between Callan Park and Sydney and ending at the Cloverleaf Highway interchange in between the Bronx Zoo and the New York Botanical Garden in the Bronx. So it's a straight line that's being drawn between those two places. And I had the occasion to do a comparative analysis of an area in the Bronx based on pictures that somebody had sent me. She was traveling around the Bronx on her bicycle and telling me what each place was. And then somebody else sent me pictures of the harbor in Sydney and flying into Sydney Airport and talking about some of the places around in the area where La Perouse is. And so I was doing all of this research and just noticing the incredible similarities between Sydney and the Bronx, going right back to the 1660s-ish for being explored and settled by the Dutch East India Company. I mean, same stories going on at the same time. And it was just really startling to see how similar everything was. And so this is where this alignment crosses, leaving Sydney, going towards the Bronx. And so here it's going over or really close to Fiji, the islands of Wallis and Futuna, Tokelau, and Kiribati.
Kiribati is, so
And
that's that little atoll in the middle of nowhere with the biggest ships that are all registered to it, isn't it?
and the international date line.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of other things. I mean, we know nothing's by accident. And again, I would look at this whole region as the land. This is where the land was destroyed and sank.
Well, I mean, you can
Um,
sort of see it under the ocean there right on that shot, if that's a real image, but
the question is, did it happen over several different events? Did it happen under one event? I lean towards one event. Other people talk about several events,
I lean
but
towards one.
so regardless, what we're seeing now with the oceans like this, I think is a relatively new occurrence.
Yeah. Agreed.
in my opinion.
The
Yeah.
flood. Looking at the Great Flood.
So it's crossing over the ocean blue into Baja California, where it enters North America. And this next screenshot shows the alignment crossing the United States to New York, and it goes through the major cities of St. Louis, Indianapolis, Dayton, Columbus, and Pittsburgh on its way to New York and the Bronx over here. So again, that in and of itself is kind of interesting that it would go right through, the major metropolitan area of Sydney, and then this same alignment continues on through these major cities in the United States.
And of course, St. Louis had a World's Fair. They got still got bits and pieces there.
World's Fairs end up on on alignments like this. It's interesting that Olympic Games show up on alignments.
Wow, yes.
Craters show up on alignments. Nuclear reactors show up on alignments. It's quite interesting. Wars show up on alignments. And again, I think this all goes into manipulating the grid as a very important component to this original civilization. Groom lines of electromagnetic energy that powered this free energy system that we know nothing about, but somebody does. Somebody knows all about this.
Clearly, they know how to deconstruct it, that's for sure.
So in this screenshot, I've highlighted 8 state hospitals, aka insane asylums, clustered around this alignment in red, as well as the location of St. Louis and Missouri directly on the alignment in yellow. So that would be here. And the St. Louis World's Fair in 1904 is one of these. So it was right in there. Okay, so the next one is going to show more of the same. And I've circled in red the 13 state hospitals clustered around the alignment. 3 in Illinois, 1 in Kentucky, 1 in Indiana, 5 in Ohio, 2 in West Virginia, and 1 in Pennsylvania. And of these 13 state hospitals, I'm only going to highlight 3. And one of Central State Hospital in Indianapolis, the Dayton State Hospital, actually maybe 4. Hang on, bear with me. The Columbus State Hospital in Ohio, and the Dixmont State Hospital in Pittsburgh. The Central State Hospital in Indianapolis, State Insane Hospital, you see it down at the bottom there.
It's crazy.
That is insane.
Formerly referred to as the Central Indiana Hospital for the Insane, was first established in 1848 for patients anywhere in the state because it was the only one, but in 1905 only served Central Indiana because of the establishment of other facilities around the state. God. So we're told some of the buildings on the campus were designed in accordance with the Kirkbride plan.
That's so they were locking up a lot of people.
Apparently so.
And just the word insane, are they telling us something? Like insane basically means to be in good mental health, good physical. Are they telling us that's who they locked up?
And they're all like this. They're all massive complexes. There are that many, that many so-called crazy people needing institutional care, or was there something very different going on? And I would suggest something very different was going on.
Yeah, the healthiest, most sane, most connected to the ancient survivors, that's who got locked up, and I mean, this to me is like Pine Gap above the earth, where they're searching for DNA, for blood types, for how to integrate. It's one big horrible experimental offense against us, basically, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would also say, how did this whole history get covered up?
Mm.
What happened to our grandparents and our great grandparents? So let's just say our generation. What made them forget whatever was here before that they're trying to hide? And of the ones that survived, because I think a lot of people probably didn't survive, but of the survivors, why doesn't this come down? Why do we just get the sanitized version of history that's exactly what they want us to believe, instead of hearing from our, through the family histories,
Mm.
what happened here? And
Yeah.
and I get comments when I do stuff on this stuff. I do get some very interesting comments from people that had family histories involving these insane asylums. And it was a very heavy, difficult topic. And so I think somehow this is connected with this mass forgetting, this collective amnesia about what's taken place here.
Yep, yep. I would concur with that. I mean, like I was reading the other day, on a different topic, but a CEO, this is a CEO of a massive, multi-billion dollar corporation 5 years ago. They did, and he was excited to do this. They basically removed a part of his frontal lobe. And they did this because from his thoughts and the doctor's thoughts and everyone around him who thought it was the greatest idea ever, was so that he could get rid of his emotional landscape and just make really clear strategic CEO decisions without being bothered by any sort of emotional drag. And they did this experiment, right? This is a true story, recent true story. And what happened when he came out of it is that he no longer could make any decisions, because when he removed that side of his brain, the emotional side of it, he could no longer even decide what cereal to have for breakfast, or, how to tie up his shoelace. It rendered him absolutely useless. And so you can, like, them
Wow.
fucking with the brain, you can see how dramatically they
Mm.
could alter the expression of the human being working through, a severed engine like that.
And memories and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? And I mean, because the brain's a receiver, right? It's like a radio. If you get a radio and smash it and take some bits out, it's not going to work, at least not the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah. I
Right.
mean, it
And
wouldn't surprise me if the insane asylums were actually the first basically testing grounds to start to develop artificial intelligence.
Yes. Well, when we started talking, I was thinking about Dr. Frankenstein's monster.
Exactly.
Mm.
And all those things we even talk about in the show, where the use of trying to reanimate the dead with electricity. They did so many experiments with electricity around creating life forms that were dead or weren't, like Frankenstein's perfect example. That
Yeah.
was like a whole genre in the
Yeah.
1800s.
And cryptids and all this. And by the way,
Mm,
Frankenstein, anyone? Stein?
mm.
Hello, kitty.
and he decided he wanted some attention. Um, and so they, the controllers, the cabal, the deep state, whatever name you want to call them, um, do not want high functioning humans in higher
Oh,
consciousness, knowing who they are and their connection to the creator and to each other. They want messed up, controllable people.
yes.
100%.
And so um, that's their ideal.
Yeah. Controllable and people that would just accept the given narrative, right, without question.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I
Yep.
think to myself, well, good on us team for not being that. But then I think, gosh, there's so many people within the people who haven't fallen for that, and they've got very strong conscious minds. And to me, that's equal your connection to your intuition. Like your intuition to me is like the echoing of a unified field, because it's when you're connected to all things, and you get those intuitive pulses or impressions or voices, whatever, that protect you and guide you and move you closer to your path. That to me is one of the things that they have spent a lot of time trying to
Mm.
sever. And even within the greatest minds, everyone is so still connected to such strong programming, like in different, well, like religion, I put religion into that category. I could put racial tension, I put war, all of that stuff goes into that category for me. There's this like
Mm.
even to be a patriot and want to go to war and murder, that to me is programming. So, even good
Well,
solid
was,
minds.
was all the trauma, generational? Is that why we get what we call, NPCs, people that just can't see anything but the system?
Right. Right. And those are all very good points from both of you on this whole situation. And I think has attenuated this whole situation of this using the grid in a way that it was not originally intended. And that's kept us down. But they couldn't keep us down forever. And so that's what we're seeing now. But I think it played a big part in it, along with the sporting events, like we talked about in the
Yeah.
last talk that we had, in the stadiums and the trains nearby, and all the different ways that this grid's been reverse engineered to harvest our energy unconsciously.
I
And
mean, sorry.
these insane asylums certainly played a part in that.
I mean, life will always triumph death. Like light, the living with the light will always triumph the artificial with the false light electricity. So when you say manipulated or use the grid in a nefarious way, to me that has to be in opposition to what we are as humans, which is alive and full of light. Again, so the like to me when and we know it. Everyone who goes anywhere near, a mental psychiatric asylum can feel the forebodingness, can feel the death, can feel the undertones of the unliving, can feel the absence of light. You
Mm.
can feel it. It's like it's so obvious and anywhere in the world, I think anyone of the living and of the light can feel that. It's just it's
Mm. And it's in the spelling too, right? Live backwards is evil.
yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And in many places, they've turned these former insane asylums into residential
Oh,
areas
Of course
and
they have.
shopping centers. And they are haunted.
yeah.
They tell you they're haunted.
Yeah.
What they've
For
just
those,
refitted the buildings, you mean, or they've knocked them over and rebuilt
no,
on
they're
top?
the same buildings.
Same
They're the
buildings,
same.
yeah.
And the ones that I'm thinking of, they were turned into residential units
Yeah,
and,
they've done
and
that
shopping
heaps in
areas
Oh
and
Australia.
things like
my
that.
God.
Heaps and jails, prisons. They've done it to jails, to hospitals and prisons here in Australia. Like there's one famous one where we'll be doing our live show. It's near Penfield Prison Camp, and it's been turned into, Instagrammable, trendy Instagram flats. That
Really? Pentridge?
yeah. Well, we're not. I mean, it's not Pentridge. I can't remember,
That's
but there's a
close to one of
jail.
the jails. Wow.
Yeah, where we're doing our live show, where we should actually go and have a look at it because it's been turned into residential. And what idiots! I'm sorry, but if you choose to sign up to that and be haunted for the rest of your days, you're an idiot.
Yes. So I'm going to show you in this next slide this place. The Central Indiana State Hospital closed for good in 1994 and was known for scandals regarding patient abuse over the years of its existence. And so you've got these cartoon-like images of the Indiana Crazy House and whatever they're doing to that guy there on the floor that they have to hold him down for and punch his head, I guess. That's kind of what it looks like he's going, holding his throat, and his
Yeah.
fist is raised above his head.
Or he's shoving
Um,
something into his head. I don't know. It's something. My God.
and then even on the sign here, it says, since the hospital's opening, lack of funding and understaffing led to patient abuse and neglect. And the superintendent attempted to rectify this and burned patient restraints in a bonfire. There was this 1883 groundbreaking pathology lab opened, served as state teaching hospital, and renamed Central State Hospital in 1927 and closed in 1994 with the goal of community-based care.
And the worst thing is that techniques there, and all these techniques involve electricity. I'm so like that has come out so
Mm.
clearly in what we've looked at. And today the same techniques are used. Like I had a friend of mine whose mother had basically manic depression. She got institutionalized and they electrocuted her.
Electroshock.
Yes,
Mm.
they did electroshock therapy. And basically, the result of electric shock therapy is loss of memory. So, yep, just saying that. That's a very new and current experience that happened in our psychiatric wards here in Australia like 5 years ago. The electroshock therapy is standard, it's normal, it's part of the deal.
Yeah, I would say the same is true elsewhere.
Mm.
And this is one place where that took place. So this is the Dayton State Hospital in Dayton, Ohio.
Cool.
It was originally known as the Southern Ohio Lunatic Asylum. It was established in 1855. According to the Kirkbride Plan, we're told, and again, we've got that 1850s time period where so much was taking place in our narrative along the reset lines. And treatments here included lobotomies and electroshock therapy.
Of course. So just
Lobotomies.
running to the toilet. I'll be back.
Lobotomies, I mean, imagine just deciding to cut into someone's brain. Like it's a big giant leap, isn't it?
And like you're saying, effectively neutralizing that person for life
Yeah,
with both
yeah,
the lobotomy and the electroshock
yeah.
therapy. They're not
And
going to be any good for anything ever.
no, and they would have known that basically within the first, couple of trials of doing that. So what were they searching for, Michelle? What were they searching for to continue to cut into the brain over and over and over again? What were they attempting?
Maximum level of lower consciousness, I think.
Mm,
I don't think they were trying to find anything or solve anything. I think they were just removing people's abilities to think and be productive. And I mean, I see this whole thing as a hostile takeover of the earth, humanity,
yeah,
the grid, creation,
yeah.
and and we're the prize. Humanity is the prize. And they would not have any opportunity to succeed in their plans for world domination um, if people were functioning at a normal level, and they didn't do these things. And so it was their only chance, in my opinion, to be successful in this takeover, which they're ultimately not going to be, as I keep saying, but this is one of the many
Mm.
ways that they accomplished.
Do you think like
And
Yeah.
lunatic? Do you think it's got anything to do with the moon? We have all these stories of the moon, coming in at some point. Lunatic.
it seems to be a connection. I mean,
Hmm.
I used to do nursing home work a number of years ago. I was a social worker and activities director, and it always did. People would say, it kind of gets crazy when there's a full moon, and there seemed to be truth to that.
Hmm.
I mean,
It's just kind
ultimately,
of
if
weird.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the theory that I'm working on, the moon would be a new phenomenon, as in, at least it was seen fairly recently as new. Like if the trees had a canopy and covered the moon, like you wouldn't actually, but it could appear to be quite a new version of things. And that doesn't fit the narrative. So anyone who literally advocated for the new moon that wasn't always there, that could have been one of the things. I mean, just like it's so if you can imagine the people before of the old world before that built these buildings before this takeover, they would have had to done a lot of reprogramming, and in doing the
Absolutely.
reprogramming used the experiments to work out how to reprogram the entire earth
Yeah.
and then eventually roll it out on the world stage so that they no longer really needed to, control it within these asylums. Like it just became
Right.
the world,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
It's like when they say
And,
they
and that
moved out to the community, right? It's like, don't call us, we'll call you.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was referring to,
Mm.
Kelly, with, insanity's been normalized.
Mm.
Mm.
We see it every day.
Yeah, we do.
And yeah, that's part of, I think, the overall plan that they had. And this place, the Dayton State Hospital, is an example of one of those places that was turned
What?
into
When you go to
retirement.
live.
So it's a retirement home called 10 Wilmington Place. And this is the main building now being utilized in this capacity. And again, these were places where, like we were just talking about, lobotomies and electroshock took place. And so you got to know that the field is disturbed in
I mean,
places like this.
fuck, of course. Again, you're an idiot if you don't know that. Like
It's like,
literally, their experiments were all to do with electricity and the impact it had on the human being. So now we live in a world that's poisoned by these frequencies. The frequencies coming off all of their technology and all their Gs and 5Gs and 6Gs and 10Gs and all of this shit they build deliberately in schoolyards and near, in towns, everywhere that they can possibly connect it to affecting the human being, they've done it. So
Mm.
everything they learnt in those asylums, they have now spread across the whole world. I would say we're living a life for the general person who's not, hasn't moved back to nature, are living a life with higher electrical interference than what we would have received as victims of the lunatic asylum back then.
Yeah, it was training for MK Ultra, right? They're getting their MK
Yeah.
Ultra all together. And
Yeah.
if you look back at all the pandemics, they're all linked with frequency changes.
Yeah.
Like, it starts with radio and then it goes up, and like 5G was around 2020,
right, right, 100%. So this example of the Columbus State Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, it was first known as the Ohio State Hospital for the Insane and established in 1838. It was the first state-supported hospital in the United States. And we're told the original building was destroyed in an 1868 fire and that it was
Of course it
rebuilt
was.
in 1877 in accordance with the Kirkbride plan. And
So,
treatments here also included lobotomies and electroshock therapy, and were said to have been considered the best treatment at the time. And this hospital was closed in the 1980s and demolished in the 1990s.
What? And is that one building? Because that's massive.
yeah, it's
That's-
magnificent. It's
yeah.
like its own citadel. I mean, that's in a magnificent building, just to marvel at the building. But you know what? It always strikes me as really weird that they manage to always burn them down. Like, how does stone burn? How do these
It
buildings
doesn't.
even catch fire? Like, what is it in them that's going to catch fire?
Nothing. But I mean,
Nothing.
we've all seen, Hawaii and Paradise and all these Jew fires, right? Where it seems to have some effect on the buildings and then they crumble and the trees don't get touched.
Right. And again, why lie to us? Why come up with these ridiculous stories and not just say, well, these buildings were pre-existing and we turned them into insane asylums, instead of saying we built them to be insane asylums, when you look at it and go,
No.
what the heck are we looking at? And what was it before in the original civilization, which is the even bigger question, when we see this kind of consistent architecture with the steeples and the windows, the 2, 3, 4 windows, which seem to have a connection with this energy grid, um, the clock towers. What was the civilization like? I just really would love to know.
I
But
mean, yeah.
and then
Yeah.
again, and even this picture, you've just got this little group here, nobody else in sight on this campus. Um, it's just interesting.
Getting asylum, being safe.
So anyway, another example of a massive complex.
Wow.
And this was the Dixmont State Hospital in the northwest suburb of Pittsburgh of Emsworth. and it was originally called the Department of the Insane in the Western Pennsylvania Hospital.
The department.
The Department of
The
the
Department
Insane.
of Insane. It
And it was said
sounds
to
like
have
a
been built
privilege.
as a it was said to have been first constructed in 1859 as part of the Kirkbride plan, and that it opened in 1862. All of that would have been around the beginning of the American Civil War,
Three
which started in
years.
Sumner in April of 1861. And so it closed in 1984. And after it had been abandoned for 20 years, it was demolished in 2006.
And they love to do that, right? They abandon them, they sort of mess them up a bit, and then they go, oh, now it's unsafe. We have to knock it over.
Yeah, there's something about them leaving these old world buildings in an abandoned, deteriorated, ruined state. That's in some places they knock those buildings down, and in other places they let them sit and sit.
They're
And
probably,
I think that's some way of degrading the grid also.
yeah, they're probably unleashed radioactive demons that they're just like slowly letting them seep into the broader spectrum of the living. You know what, like these buildings and the sort of like the demolishing of these buildings and them catching fire and they're like the whole process they go through. It's so repetitive. It's so every single one has the basically same story, don't they? They're just the
Mhm.
same. And it's like it always strikes me when we parallel the Civil War days with buildings like this, where the books you get shown at school of civil wars, they're basically fighting with knives and muskets. Just
Hmm.
they're just like got weapons. It's all very it doesn't sit alongside buildings like this as far as the what it would take to construct a building
Technology.
like then the
Hmm.
technology versus what was going on with the Civil War. Like it's just so yeah, this is why
I
I think
mean,
all of history needs to be squashed down into like a very small time period.
Exactly. And what was going on in the Civil War, really.
Yeah.
If you look at
wow.
the American Civil War and the
Yes.
Crimean War, what was really going on there? And I don't think it
Wow.
has anything to do with what we're conditioned to believe in our
No.
history. I think it
Was
was
part of the
more to do
invasion.
with cover, taking down the civilization, the original people, covering it up, and they were doing something. I think something was happening during those years, but I do not believe it was the story that we're told about it.
No, but I mean, war's a very convenient excuse, right, for cities being destroyed.
Right. And doing something with the original civilization, some aspect of it, or maybe even digging out buildings
Yeah.
or, whatever could have been going on.
Yeah, I mean, I've in the past when Cam and I've done shows on the asylums, I've always sort of like chewed on the concept that the whole purpose of all of this was how to have the dead inhabit the living. That has always been my like theory on the asylums. How do we get the dead to inhabit and possess the living? How do we get them to have their own vehicles, their own
Hmm.
bodies, and parasite? Basically, how can we be a parasitic force onto the human race? That's what I think was going on in these asylums.
And are you thinking demonic entities, Kelly? Because that's what
Well,
comes to my mind
yeah, I
is
mean,
is like
demonic is the,
possession by
yeah,
demonic
yeah, the
by
realm.
demonic.
And we are
Yeah,
told these stories, right, of the what are they called, incarnate beings or souls or whatever that are floating around looking for bodies. Obviously, the stories are being twisted and religified, but there is that narrative out there, and that's what I
yeah,
think. I mean, clearly there's something that's currently in control that is not us.
Right.
yeah. So
Right.
to
And that
me,
makes a lot of sense. That makes a
the
lot of sense.
the asylums were basically MK Ultra, like across the world. They were the MK Ultra institutes. They were the Montauk institutes across the world. Like we've decided Montauk was like the housing home of MK Ultra, but all of the asylums would have been replicating the same thing, experimenting with electricity, how a parasitic entity can attach and take over a human host. And in doing that, wiping the memories of the living. Now, we see this play out today with celebrities, don't we? And in the media, the people who are continuing to be that propaganda face of this invasion have seem to have had similar experiences, that they don't go into insane asylums, they go into rehab. They go into Alcohol Anonymous and rehab environments, then come back, or, like whatever you have to say about the celebrities. But it's never gone
Reprogrammed.
away. It's never stopped. And it's worldwide and has been since the invasion, really. And now, Trump's being very literal about reopening these huge epic buildings. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure CERN's attached to it now as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more to that story. Of the whole story of insane asylums, from when they were said to have come into existence, what the heck was going on in these places, and we've been talking about a lot of the different aspects of that, and that they're not good places. Something very detrimental to humanity was taking place here, and keeping us from our true natures and ability to connect with each other and the creator. And something wanted that, like you said, the parasitic forces, the demonic forces that were part of this invasion, undoubtedly. And we're not dealing with human entities in any of the things that we're talking about. I don't believe we are, and from what I gather, you don't believe that we're dealing with human entities
No,
in
well,
terms of how we got here.
they're clearly not us, right? Like
They're not a
they don't have human morals or values or anything like that.
so
I mean,
and
these
and
are
and and, and their biggest accomplishment is convincing us they don't exist.
Yes, exactly right.
I mean, these are the true concentration camps, basically, is what I would put them down to. I mean, we can't say specifically it's not a human phenomenon. I mean, obviously at some point there was earthlings, human beings, that fell victim to whatever this is. The best I've sort of come up with is, I mean, I keep referring to voice of God technology, that there were voices placed in human heads that somehow were convincing enough and godly enough, inverted commas, that basically convinced them that this was God or this was their creator. And thus bloodlines began in service to this idea, to this force, to this unknown voice. And I think, I think it could have like started the process. And I mean, I put that way back in the pre-flood world, because something felled those trees,
Mm.
so like,
But
and something had to be human of nature in order to be connected into it to begin with. So, but I really don't think it was out of earth. I think whatever this is, it's a massive imbalance in the earth itself. So my theory would put the invasion from and a part of earth, which keeps changing its size, shape, and face. We literally do not understand the nature of the earth that we exist on. So that's why I
Right,
refer it to it as the underworld or the empire of the dead.
right. And they don't want us to know anything about it.
No, no, of course.
They don't want us to know about anything.
Of course not.
So they're happy to teach us garbage and lies.
yeah,
Um,
and I mean,
and
obviously,
go
sorry, you
ahead.
go. I was going to say, obviously, with the voice of God, there's rewards, right? They
Yes.
do get rewarded, and that's still going on today. And we see it in Hollywood and the music industry. People selling out their ethics and their humanity for physical rewards.
Because they created the systems, Cam, that
Mm.
deliver the rewards.
Yeah,
from the
exactly.
beginning.
Yeah, yeah, they've
So,
created all of our money and all this stuff. They
yeah.
control the reward system.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
again, it's binary, it's not relational. I mean, we go on and on and on and on and on about this, but it's a very clear distinction between a unified field and a field of duality, which is ultimately the separation from one's own intuition, one's own unification of the whole. So that's been,
Exactly.
yeah, a crack that they have created in this control grid. And then everything about our reality here is just a reiteration of that original fall from our own unification, our own unified field.
Right, right. So there's definitely a human element, like you're saying, Kelly. They're messing up people to become the worst version of themselves,
Oh,
to
fuck
be
yeah.
Yes.
to go insane, if you will.
I mean,
Um,
who were these outrageous human beings who worked in these asylums, committing these things and holding these people down and then finishing it off with a bit of rape? You know, like who are these people? Who are these
but
humans? That,
we see that happening today, don't we?
yes, we do. And
That's still
100%.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
And with
And
enough trauma, you can turn people into, non-humans, right? They'll just do anything if they've got enough deep trauma.
Yep.
Hence,
we,
SRA, MLK, all this kind of stuff.
you've talked about MK Ultra and what they're doing. They're creating multiple personality disorders and alters that they can trigger to do like mass shootings or whatever with code words.
Yeah.
You hear about that happening, and they're going through trauma to split their personalities into more than one, and their personalities aren't aware of each other, and
Yep.
I'm sure those kinds of things are going on here
Yep.
in
Yep.
places like
Absolutely.
this.
We live in the end result of what these asylums were experimenting to establish and develop. We live in the end result of that. Now, today, everything to do with artificial intelligence and technology and the microwaves and the frequencies that are rained down on us have their origins in the experiments that were
Mm.
going on here.
Yeah, and the origin of TV was literally it was created to be a mind control device
That's right. And a spirit technology.
and spirit and all, yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
No,
In the live show, every single advancement in technology came down to the inventor being obsessed with um, contacting the dead. Obsessed. Every single innovation from the 1800s onwards, the inventor were obsessed with the dead. I mean,
Mm.
that's just fucking weird.
I know, right? Even NASA. Jeez.
Yeah, it's just so weird.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had some other thoughts come in while you were talking, and
Yeah, go
they
for
didn't hang around. So,
I know. Sorry.
it.
but
They'll
yeah,
come back.
it will. Um, and this is certainly an important aspect of our world. I'm bringing it forward to shine light on it here in this example, and I know what I was going to say. I gave the example of Callan Park because it's the only Kirkbride in Australia, and I could connect it this way. But there's certainly other insane asylums and institutions in Australia,
For sure. There was a massive one
all
in
over,
Melbourne, the Yarra one. Yeah.
all over. So even though there's more insane asylums in your part of the world, I picked Callan Park because it was the only Kirkbride that I'm aware of.
Mm, mm, mm.
So now we're getting close to the end of the journey along this alignment from Sydney to the Bronx. So here's
From Sydney to the
our line
Bronx.
here.
It sounds very exotic, doesn't it? Like I want to know about Sydney to the Bronx.
Um, so in this example, I've highlighted the Manhattan State Hospital and the Brooklyn State Hospital as being near.
Ah,
So
yes.
this was part of Blackwell's Island Lunatic Asylum,
Whoa.
and it first operated in the city of New York starting in 1839. And it's called Roosevelt Island today, and they're saying this is the ruins of the smallpox hospital that was here, and the only ruins in New York City to be a local landmark is what they tell us.
What did they
And I
do?
guess
Fucking put a bomb in the middle of it?
I don't know,
How
but
is it
you know,
like that?
you know, but it's also it looks like you could plop that building down in the middle of the UK and it would be quite
Yeah, it looks like
Yes,
a castle.
it's
like
like
Harry Potter.
part of it,
Mm.
and that's the thing. There's castle buildings all over North America. I'm sure they're all over
Oh,
Australia,
yeah, you
and
should see Government House.
I,
Mm.
I've yes, exactly. So same thing, and same architects probably.
No doubt.
I
They
know
probably won a competition to get in there too, right?
exactly, but I do know that the supposed architect of Government House in Sydney was the same guy that was credited with this palace in the Crimea called Alupka, and it actually looks a lot like this one.
In Crimea.
Um, so the same architects are getting credited with all this stuff all over the place. Before we had transportation that would make that convenient. And so the New York Asylum for the Insane was said to have opened in 1863, and the building was significantly enlarged in accordance with the Kirkbride plan in 1871. The state took over operation of the hospital from Manhattan in 1899, and at the time, with 4,400 beds, it was the largest psychiatric hospital in the world. And the current Manhattan Psychiatric Center facility is still active and was said to have been constructed in 1954. But again, you're still getting the size here with all the rooms they have.
It looks like an old world
That
building that's
facility.
been de-facaded, right? And had all the
Yeah,
stuff taken off it and
yeah.
coated in stuff. Yeah,
I mean, that's fucking massive.
that's
That is
big.
a who owns it today? Do you know, Michelle, who owns it?
It's this is part of the Manhattan Psychiatric Center. So
Well,
maybe city or
that's
state.
a freaky building. That's a freaky building. That's like a vertical prison looking building.
Yeah. And it's interesting to kind of see whatever's going on in here in the water.
Mm, an old pier or something.
That is, yeah, yeah. You got to look at
Bathhouse,
everything.
maybe. Mm.
So that's is that on an island? That's not an island, is it? That's
I'm
part
not
of
sure,
the
Kelly.
so that is that part of the landmass? That's part of New Manhattan. Yeah, it's not. It's on an actual island.
I believe it would be Manhattan, which is part of,
Yep.
I think Manhattan's an island.
And
Manhattan is
that's
an
still
island.
functioning today as a psychiatric hospital.
Hmm. Yes.
All 4,400 rooms.
The original one, I don't know if this one, but it sure looks like it has 4,400 rooms, even if it doesn't.
It does.
Wow.
But at one time it did for sure,
Ah,
whatever
gosh
building they were
almighty.
using. And then the Brooklyn State Hospital has a history dating back to 1854. Again, we're looking at the 1850s, comes up a lot. And all over the world, in North America, in Australia, in Europe, in Asia, 1854 was the year, or anytime in the 1850s, really. So this was first known as Kings County Hospital, and that in 1882, a fire broke out in the building,
Of
and
course.
that fire impacted the men's section. The building was repaired after the fire, but no significant changes were made until 1911, at which time plumbing and wiring were replaced and fire escapes and systems were finally installed.
You know,
Sounds like a mess.
and it reminds me, as you were saying that, I had that TV series Stranger Things flash into my head. Where they've just like opened a portal to the underworld and there's, things are coming through and then they have to blow it up and then it like destroys the fire in the building but like honestly, even just seeing those words, Office of Mental Health. I mean, my entire life, I've seen words, blah, 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 mental health. Like, you're so right when you say how normalized it is. This concept of mental health is just like they have so many departments and government organizations and funding to do with mental health. I mean, I work in a charity and I know how much funding is allocated through Australia for mental health, as if it's like this, epidemic. like it's so used. It's like it's such a solid department in every state on every continent around the entire world. Mental health, the Department of Mental Health. It's just like
Yeah.
it blows
All
my
these
mind.
words. And like
Yeah,
office, it's like of vice. And vice means to fart.
to, to fart. I
But it
mean,
is an
like
epidemic.
it's an
It's an
epidemic,
epidemic.
and you can see, I mean, it's an epidemic in as much as the mental side of the world's been normalized, in as much as we live in the same world. That's what it where it's epidemic. But in as much as general people that you meet, it's not like I don't feel like there's an epidemic of mental health. Yes, I feel
No,
people are
no,
suffering
agreed.
from gut bacterium issues and depression from too much sugar and, stress from their bills. But mental health, I mean, you've really got to be in a diabolical drug induced something or mass trauma, right? But you wouldn't put mass trauma down to mental health. So, the fact that it's utilized and the fact that we as a human species came out of the last 500 years from what I think was a unified field where bipolar or polarity or duality was not the case. And we've fallen into this separation. And then this concept right from the beginning that we're mentally in need of departments, mental health. It's like the number one thing that we are actually not.
Hmm. But
So
it's
it's
all it's
just,
all for our safety. They just want to help us, Cal. Come on.
yeah, I mean, it just blows your mind. Like it
Hmm.
literally blows your mind
Yeah.
how dominant this concept of mental health is as a phrase, as a
Hmm.
department, as an office. Yep.
They're doing it now with the brain implants, right? It's starting off, it's to help quadriplegics and paraplegics and all this, and it'll go up, and next thing you know, it'll be to help people with bipolar.
So there's a
Yep.
lot of variables, and and you made a great point, Kelly. I mean, we're not talking everybody, far from it, but there's certainly an element of just absolute crazy behavior that's being exhibited, that's being asked to be tolerated, that's been being asked to be reinforced,
Hmm.
especially when we're talking about gender identity,
Oh, yeah.
God.
Yes.
especially, you know,
Yes.
pushing
Yeah.
it on babies, wanting everybody to accept all of that, men and
That's
women's
true. That's pretty
bathrooms and locker
mental.
rooms
Yeah.
and,
Well, it's got to the
you
point
know,
where parents are like not even supporting kids who are doing it; they're talking them into it.
Yeah.
or it's being done behind the parents' back.
Well, that as well through the school
That's
system.
happening a
Yeah.
lot. That's happening a lot here in the States. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's where we're at. And so,
Yeah. I
but
mean, I,
they can't shove that down everybody's throats. And it's getting so obvious that that's what they're trying to do.
but
And I
it's
think
gonna
that's
be,
one of the places it's going to backfire. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kelly.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's true. Like sorry, I can't see your face, Michelle, so I can't see when you're speaking.
Sorry.
So, it's all right. So for me, the transgender, that whole like, this is a boy, this is a girl, this is a cat, whatever, concept is going on. It won't. It's very easy to see through it. It's transparent for the majority of humans. Like it's been rejected by the majority. And I can say, like in my lifetime, maybe I have come up against maybe only a handful, maybe less than five individuals in my life that have had actual
Hmm.
mental health issues that, needed some form of medicine or focus on or some support with. But in my whole lifetime, generally speaking, that is not the case. So I can't see in my experience where the 444 beds, where the 4,000 beds could
Yeah,
possibly have been.
4,400, not 400,
I
not
mean,
4,400.
honestly, in your lifetimes, Cam and Michelle, like how many people have you personally known that have had a serious, what you would consider a mental health issue?
I mean,
I can't think
I'm
of
at
anybody.
zero. I can't think of any, right?
I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I had a brother with mental health illnesses. He's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Um, but he was able to hold a job down and function. I mean,
Hmm.
he was mostly self-defeating, anxiety, a lot of fear,
Yeah.
um, high functioning, very smart. But when he got into adulthood, he had some things happen.
And
But I
a
mean,
lot of it is just,
I'll give my brother as an example. He would not be somebody that would go into a place like this. He was able to live independently, um, for the most part. He
Mm.
needed some support. He needed some help with managing his money. But I mean, that's the most severe example I can think of,
Yeah.
and there's no way he would be appropriate for institutionalization.
Yeah.
I think most of it is just living in this crazy society with these crazy rules, right? It's more it's a self-talk, sort of how you see the world kind of thing. I don't think it's this, chemical imbalance. Most of them, that they tell us, and we're getting to the point now that if you're a bit shy, well, that's a mental disease. If you're a bit outgoing, well, that's a mental disease. If you're, it's uh, everything, right? Everything's a mental
Yeah.
disease. Quick, quick, take the drugs, and then of
Yeah.
course the cure is the cause.
Exactly. And
It
most of the issues that you would say you could know in this lifetime around mental health, they tend to be anxiety, depression,
Yeah,
or in my case, I've experienced people with bipolar, which and they're the three ones that I have only ever experienced. And um and in the most cases, almost 99% would be healed by fixing your gut bacteria.
yes,
So, like, I mean, the solutions to a wobbly state of mind tend to be something connected to your gut. So, and then one of my first partners back when I was sort of 21 years old was a filmmaker and actually made a documentary on the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, the DMS or something like that. I may not have got it right. And in since 1950, when it was sort of like first innovated to when this documentary was made, which was like 2000 and whatever, two or whatever, the amount of disorders, mental health disorders that were in this book, where it started like this, went from like 55 to like 890 diagnostical. And so every time a mental health diagnostic ended up in this book, then the psychiatrist could give them drugs to treat
yes.
that.
I was just going
So
to say it's not the conditions they're fighting. They're making drugs and getting waste from petroleum and going, well, what can we sell this for? Quick,
yeah,
quick, let's
yeah,
make something up.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So I mean, being that the human race, and that's good because like if we're all sitting here, and I'm sure the audience can look around as well and think, okay, well, the most mental health I've dealt with via people in my life really come down to these little things here. They're not little, but they're things there that could potentially just be cured by a gut bacterium. So as a whole, the human race do not have mental health issues.
Yep.
They have circumstantial trauma or
Right. I mean,
health
we're
issues.
not talking one flew over the cuckoo's nest crazy. I mean,
No,
No.
nobody. I don't think I've ever known anybody that
no.
fell in that category.
They're all movies, right?
Yeah.
The worst versions of everything
It's
comes down to Hannibal Lecter and, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo. And they're movies. They're just movies
yeah.
that we've been fed.
Yeah. It's just like all the cowboy movies to bring that in, that narrative, all the space movie, it's
Yeah,
it's it's all just propaganda to make us
yeah.
believe that this kind of stuff exists when it doesn't necessarily.
I mean, a classic image that we were fed as kids, I remember, is the straitjacket. And
Yes.
that came out strongly with Hannibal Lecter, right? That friggin' white straitjacket. They've got to tie them up because they're going to be harmful to themselves or someone else. But I have never in
And
my
the padded
entire life
cell.
ever. So I think this is tribute to the human race because we are dealing with a set of insane circumstances built by an insane invader. But for the most part, the human race has maintained stability of mind and mental health.
Mm, even
That's
after everything they've done.
that's that's a great observation, and I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree.
because we
Most
can't,
people,
yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say, most people don't know how how bad it is. how bad it's been.
Yeah. Yep.
In terms of these things that we're talking about, most people are totally unaware, living their lives and raising their kids and going to the store and having fun with friends and doing recreational activities. I mean, this these things aren't a part of ordinary people's lives.
Yeah, I agree. And like I will go even one step further as an acute observation, which is the new generation, Charlie's age generation, who's 15 right now. That whole generation is actually being groomed for mental instability. And it's like because they're being groomed to label everything with a term. So, when they're slightly uncomfortable, it's because something toxic's happening. When they're having a little cat fight with their bestie, that person's being toxic and to stay away. So they're literally being groomed in a new nuance to facilitate and name toxic behavior, and not being able to acknowledge that discomfort gives strength. So I'm just making an observation. I can see generationally how they've tried to manipulate the concept of mental health and feed it through as its own genre into our vocabulary, into our concepts, into the fabric of our reality. But in no way across no generation since the flood can I see evidence that the human race is mentally unstable or lost its mind. In fact, the evidence I can see is that we're supremely stable and supremely mentally healthy because we have like survived all of what they've thrown at us, to the point where there's whole genres of people like us who can sit here and actually talk on the topic of this as observers. And you can't be an observer if you're mentally insane. The observer comes from mental clarity.
Mm.
Right. Right. Like you said, they threw everything at us that they could possibly throw
Yeah.
at us. And we're still waking up,
They must be
able
so
to
annoyed
see,
with us.
able to see. I just have a few more slides here, so I'll
Go
wind it
for
up.
it.
So in this last screenshot, we've come to the end of this alignment from Sydney, and this is the Bronx Zoo and the Botanical Garden here, and all the way along from Sydney to the Bronx, it crackles and pops with things like insane asylums in major U.S. cities. And so I just have these last two slides. One is on the definition of statistical significance, which is a determination that a relationship between two or more variables is caused by something other than chance. So this was intentional, that whole idea, as opposed to being random,
Hmm.
lacking a definite plan, purpose, or pattern. And that's what our historical narrative leads us to believe, that
Yes.
all of the Earth's infrastructure came into existence as a result of random factors, like some guy in the past bought land upon which
Yeah.
blank eventually became a large city.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we're seeing all this stuff show up on this alignment, just by drawing a line from Sydney to
I love that.
And
I
so
mean, a
that's the
unit.
kind of thing that you do with your research. You just like connect two cities and see what's along the line.
Mhm. It's important. I mean, that's basically how I got here. I found a lot in that process.
Mm,
Literally
mm,
And
connecting the dots.
it's literally going place to place and looking at the history, looking at the infrastructure, and all these patterns come out. And, I mean, that's what I have to share is the pattern recognition and the similarities in places and the stories that go along with them. And does this even make sense?
yeah.
How could this possibly have just all of these similarities popped up at the same time all across the world? And, again, we're looking primarily at the 19th century. If we're looking at what our narrative tells us, building massive buildings in Sydney and Melbourne and Perth, and it just it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, um, because we don't even build that way today.
But we
And
can't.
and they're supposed to be doing this at a lower level of tech that we're supposed to be at. Um,
Oh, mate, Cam and I were very proud of ourselves when we managed to screw some corrugate to a friggin' home pipes. Like, like,
It's 3 days to build a dunny. Bloody hell.
yeah, 3 days to build a toilet. That's right. And we were proud of that. And I think
Yes.
that's basically the cross standard across the world.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
And again, it's like, okay, so you were talking about how do these stone buildings burn, and so
oh,
you've got the story of the Great Fires, and they burned down all of these wooden buildings that were there, and they built back better with these masonry buildings, and then those buildings burned down, apparently, in some places. Like if you look at the Chicago fire and the San Francisco fire, and it looks like a war scene.
it's almost like, I mean, the fireplaces that were in these buildings, they weren't running off wood and like the way that we do it today, they had that sort of, what was it called? It's the
Radium.
radium, that's right. Radium. It's almost like these fires are like an explosion from the inside, like a gas explosion, like not in the way that we would know about a building to burn down.
Right. Like a directed energy
Yeah,
weapon
yeah,
or
yeah.
something. I mean, and I think they use frequency for destruction also.
Yeah.
But I mean, your example of the fireplaces and these beautiful fireplaces with the tiles, and you know
And the
they've
big artwork above it, never with
the
any
artwork
soot
above
on it.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly, Campbell. And when they knocked out this grid, they had to replace it. They had to replace it with coal and oil and gas, and burn the logs on the andirons in the fireplace that was never meant to produce heat
Burn
that
wood.
way.
Mm.
And you have works of art. The andirons that held the logs were works of art. The fireplaces were works of art.
Mm.
And they had to heat the place up somehow after this grid was destroyed. So I see this whole, especially in the 19th century, they're getting things up and running. The streetcars are being pulled by horses or mules until they can get it re-electrified. And then as soon as they can get the cars and the buses up and running, then they take all of the other infrastructure out. And then the free energy mass transportation that's not polluting is replaced by what we've got today with the chaos and the insurance and the companies controlling the cost of fuel and making lots of money and starting wars and things like that. So, but I see that very much as this free energy system was in place. It got knocked out. They had to dig everything out. They had to get things restarted. And then they had to use the available resources that they figured out how to turn oil into gas and, get the cars going and everything. And they got all that in place. And then whatever public transportation they had, for the most part, except in a few places where they still have the streetcar system, um, they got rid of the streetcar system. And they used to have the streetcar everywhere. I mean, I've
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen photos
Every
of,
city. Yeah.
it like in a residential neighborhood
yeah,
with the streetcar going down the street. I saw one in Charlotte, North Carolina,
yeah.
of a
They're all
historic
over
photo.
Australia too. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Everywhere.
mean,
But not controllable, right? Like once everyone's on a car, they can control it. They make you register it and pay this stuff, but then they can play with the petrol prices, which we've seen recently. And then, of course, they reintroduce the electric Tesla car once it's controllable and full of, technology that's going to track you, because we had those back in the late 1800s.
Yeah. And we can't even imagine that we had all this sophisticated technology 100, 200 years ago.
Mm, yeah.
It's like, how could that possibly be? And I think that's one of the stumbling blocks that people have in really understanding all of this, it's like, well, how's that even possible?
You, when you were talking just before, I had a flash of the Dark Crystal. You know that the movie The Dark Crystal, that TV series? They were made with puppets when we were kids.
Yeah.
Have you seen it, Have you seen The Dark
I
Crystal?
haven't seen it. I've
Ah,
heard of it though, but I
totally
haven't seen
worth watching because it just flashed in my mind because the way the Dark Crystal works is they basically whoever holds the crystal holds the power. I've been thinking about crystals lately, and with the Dark Crystal, they basically have to take the life force out of the gelflings, out of the little creatures of the earth, the earthlings, you'd call them probably. And they'd put them up, and the crystal would drain their life force and then put all the power into this dark crystal. Like when I think of the lunatic asylums, when I think of what they were doing there to humans and continue to do, it's not that dissimilar, isn't it? This like draining the life force, fine-tuning the technology that's going to drain the life force and then, bring that life force into a nefarious state. When we did a live show, Cam and I talk about the Ark of the Covenant a lot as the first technology that was like, inspired by the voice of God to be built. And it was an energy weapon. It was an energy weapon and a resonant weapon and a frequency weapon. And, the first like identifiable physical weapon on this realm. And, I can see how the Ark of the Covenant concept, the weaponized concept, would, be very underpinned by, asylums, lunatic asylums, and having a place, a farm, if you like, to loosh and recharge its battery, taking the life force out of humans, just to add a dark and devious note to the end of our podcast.
it. Well, I think that's what was taking place with these asylums and human energy. It's
Mm.
to harvest that really low energy of pain and suffering, in addition to whatever else they were doing. But but these invaders, these parasites, need our energy,
They
so
do.
they're just
Yeah,
sucking it up.
yeah. They're
They're
Mm.
sucking
sucking
it
it
up
up.
in the churches that are,
Yep,
broadcasting
yep,
a ritualized human energy that's praying. Then you've got the
Right. Yes.
PREY and
Exactly.
PRAY, um,
the black
at
boxes.
games and stadiums, and you know the for team and the against the home team and the away
Yep,
team, and that going back and forth, the concerts, um, and just as a few examples. But it's just like,
yep,
again, going to the normalization of this. You just go there for
Mm.
recreation and entertainment, entrainment,
Or
yep.
enter the taint of the mind.
entrainment.
Mm.
Um, and so it's going somewhere. That energy is going somewhere, and I think it's going somewhere through this grid.
Yeah. And then these
So
buildings are,
once they reprogrammed it from for the benefit of all of life to the benefit of the few, they reprogrammed it, and is it where is it going?
well, all the
Something
granite,
something
right?
is something is living off of it, I
And the
think.
granite's full of crystals, which is sucking all this stuff in, right? All the stone that they use. Is that what haunting is? Because crystal carries memory, right? Is it then projecting it back out again? Just a thought.
It very well could be. And you gave the example of prisons, the suffering going on in prisons, and that's probably not what we're told. I mean, basic behavior is criminalized, or they create the conditions which cause the criminal behavior, whether it's drinking or drugs or
Yeah.
just
Being,
poverty and
yeah.
needing to commit a crime to have bread or whatever. I mean, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables was about, this boy that stole a loaf of bread to feed his family, and it gets thrown into prison for 20 years.
I
The
mean, they
beginning of the
love,
That's
story.
the convict story too, right?
yeah, yeah. They love to entrap us in large groups. They love that. That's a very repetitive model across our culture. whether it be prisons or asylums or, religions or churches or, the black box rituals or the entertainment. It's always mass groups of us. But if they can get you there permanently and hold and bind you there, seems to be their preference.
Yeah. Yep. And that story of prisons being built by convicts in the 1850s, 1855 comes to mind. You find that date everywhere. And
well, Michelle, just so side note, it was around 1855, 56, 57, and 8 that they innovated and completed the transatlantic cable, which gave us the internet. They were the exact years the internet was established. Just side note, because that's a big thing, an unexplainable, big thing that was happening under our oceans using electricity at the same time. They were losing so much energy from these asylums.
Right. At the same time, 1854 was the year that Commodore Perry went to Tokyo and that whole opening of Japan came about, 1854. I mean, there's just, trains, massive train engineering projects coming online. The Pennsylvania Railroad built this amazing band called it was called the Horseshoe Bend. It was in Altoona, Pennsylvania. If you look at it, it's just this incredible thing that was called a major engineering project of its day in 1854. But that was all pre-existing tech.
Yeah.
And they just,
All
if they were doing anything, they were getting it back up and running again.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, they did not build.
Because, it was the peak of technology. And then, like 50 years later, they're ripping it out and stuff. And all those weird pictures of like them running trains, like the old trains off bridges and stuff to destroy them. And like, it's just a crazy story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Entertainment.
There you go. Part 2 of another crazy look. But I will end the note by congratulating everyone who's listened to this, because we have proven to be the least insane of all of it. The human race are mentally stable. We are stable and we are sane, and let no one tell you otherwise.
We have survived.
We've survived, and pretty well, I think. Pretty well. It's not like we've survived in a decayed mess in the corner, surrounded by rats and bats. We've survived well. In fact, one could argue from the perspective of creator energy that we're thriving, and like, it's once you become conscious of a lot of this, you can really make a lot of easy tweaks in your reality to really, even have your mental health, thriving even more and brighter, and your health brighter and your consciousness brighter. And since we haven't actually lost the faculties of intuition, since that's still very much alive in us, it means that we're still connected to a unified field. Like they've never managed to corrupt or sever that. And when we talk about that, I'm in a real film thing at the moment. I think of the Golden Compass, where they have the daemons, they're little creatures that accompany them, and the technology is to sever that relationship, sever them from their protector, unified, intuitive relationship, and they've never achieved it. Not with us.
That's correct. Excellent point, Kelly.
Thanks, mate.
They can't.
They can't do it.
They can't.
They try and they try.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? If you were really to try to figure out what precisely and exactly they were trying to do, if I was them, I would simply be trying to separate use whatever word you want. Intuition is probably the word I'm going to use, but sever our relationship to intuition, our relationship to unification, to wholeness, to oneness, to love, to heart, to spirit, to soul, to living beings, to sever our relationship to the all. That's what would then render the human race a zombie, controllable slaves. But they've never managed to do that.
Not yet. Life's an inside game, right? And that's the thing. They get you by getting you to believe it's an outside game and all the answers are outside of you, but They're inside.
Well, my intuition is fucking alive and well, I'll have everyone know. So they haven't managed to sever us
Mm.
from that. And
And
that
and
is a
mine
thing.
and mine too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
all of
that's
us.
what I that's it's intuition.
Yep,
Yeah, the teacher
You
within.
know, they've removed all of this from our books and our history, and
What a
so I
power.
I I was interested in books that talked about stuff like this, but I found my way through noticing what was in the environment and people I met, and being open to receive new information, not having to have things look a certain way. And it's been very intuitive, and it's been synchronistic. You
Yeah,
know,
yes.
synchronistic.
and
Definitely. I think a big thing is trusting yourself. People don't trust themselves anymore and their own thoughts and their own intuition. And they think they need an expert, right? Which is all the program. But, when you do trust yourself and you go with your gut feeling and that, synchronicities do happen. Things start to line up, right?
And you know what? Intuition, when it comes down to it, it's just this observation of what is. It's just the observation of the obvious. It's just what is obvious, what is. And like the entire foundations of what you'd call the truth movement was that exactly. It's that, intuitive beings just said, well, what's obvious about this? What is obvious about this? And that is intuition. That's it. That's it. That's the foundational understanding of what it is, the study of what is.
Yeah. And believing it, right? Because, yeah, you look out, right, and it's a flat earth. And they go, "No, hang on, look at all these equations. What you see is wrong. Believe us.
That's
We're
right.
experts. Don't trust
Exactly.
yourself. Trust
Yeah.
us."
Exactly. The study of what is. And that's how this whole Tartarian thing is unfolded. Hey, like, at some point, Cam, you were like, what is that?
Mm.
What is that? I've noticed
Oh,
it. What is it?
Star thoughts
You
were a
know?
massive one for me. I was
Yeah.
literally like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. Same with the asylums. Like, what
This,
are
all of it,
they?
right?
What,
and,
why?
and all
The
all we're
cathedrals.
all we're doing is putting this information out there for you to consider,
Yep.
Mm.
to look
Yep.
Yeah.
at, and ask the same question: what
Yep.
is that?
What's obvious about
That's,
this?
and discernment is always important. Doing your own research is always important. Don't just follow to
Just
follow.
please don't follow.
Um,
Don't follow
you
random
know,
people like us on YouTube. Think for yourself.
it, we're all doing the best we can. We're not all saying exactly the same thing, but we're putting our bits together.
That's the power, right? Answers lie in conversation. The truth hides in conversation. It's all of
and
us with
Yep.
all of our different perspectives.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's
And
right.
sitting down and having a conversation about it, and bringing you into the conversation.
Yep.
Indeed.
Basically.
Isn't
And
this strange?
yep. And through the study of what is obvious, the 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 deception just falls away. Like once you ask that question, nothing untrue can stabilize around that question because it's all of the deception that we've been hit with is like usually, generally speaking, visual information. It's just like that it could be because when all of this unfolded after the flood, they introduced media. They started with the printing press and then the radio and then the newspaper and then television and then all designed to present us with visual context because we're visual thinkers and the psychology of the human brain is you only have to see something 7 times and then you're sold. It becomes reality. We only need a few impressions at the same time. Do, 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 do. And then that becomes the perception that we're filtering our belief structures through. So it's not like a difficult equation to understand how the illusion has happened. But when you actually stop and say, what is obvious about this? What is obvious about these buildings in the city that I've walked past 1,000 million times is that they're gigantic and they're not built for people outside. I mean, that is obvious once you started. But when you only have to ask one question, and then there's 1,000 more applications of that one question. So it doesn't take much for the delusion and the illusion to drop once you're using your intuition.
Indeed. Indeed. And
word
if you,
media,
sorry, you
the
go.
word the word media is connected to the word medium,
Medium, yeah.
and talking about the intermediary between spirits.
Yep.
So
And
you get that
Medea,
connection in
the
there as
goddess
well.
Medea, yeah. They,
And
they
they all,
you know,
and
tell lies, see vision, they kind of tell us in their spelling, right?
yep, and that medium language concept is so true as you work your way through the inventions of the last 200 years. It's there always start with the idea of mediumship. Media has had its foundation, the technology with the connecting with the dead. So that should tell you everything, everyone, because connecting with the dead would be the ultimate inversion of the living.
Mm,
Like you,
yeah.
it's kind of unimaginable conceptually. Why would you do that? Like you to revere and to remember and to honor, but why do you need to have this delusion of talking to the dead? Like, anyway, but that's a whole other podcast, and we will leave that to this same
Yes.
time next week.
If you want to hear more about that one, Melbourne. When's Melbourne? The 31st?
31st of October to the 1st
31st?
of November and
And
the
of
2nd
course,
of November.
and come and join the conversation with Michelle, 18th of
Yes.
September. I'll put the links for both below.
And Michelle, are you going to join us for one more podcast next week before you start on your wonderful adventure to the land of Oz? All right,
right.
good.
I can.
The
I
land of
can. Thumbs
Oz.
up. Let's do it.
Have a
Let's
look
do
behind
it.
the curtain, see what's
Let's do
there.
it. All right, my friends, that was great and fascinating and a good chew as always. Very enjoyable. Thank you for the slide presentation, Rita. I always get excited. Oh, what is she going to bring this time? What topic will we traverse this time?
Yes. Thank you, Michelle. Great to chat again. And we will talk again next week, and then we'll talk in person.
Woohoo, yay.
Can't wait.
Oh. All right, everyone. Well, look, everyone have a lovely week out there in the audience, and a lovely week, you guys. And we'll be back online next Friday night with part 3 of Michelle Gibson, leading to
Great.
her
Yes.
world tour. Her world tour
Your
from the
Australia tour.
Orkneys.
Across the
All
realm
right.
tour.
But it's big for me. I mean, it's my first foray into this side of things.
The outer ring.
Well, I can tell you, Michelle, there's no other set of arms than to fall into Campbell's mine to feel like a beautiful way to start your live show presentations. We
I know
promise.
that.
We're soft and gentle and loving.
I'm with the best.
You're with the best, my friend. Don't you worry a thing about it.
We'll get you Vegemite sandwiches and everything.
That's right. That's right. All right, everyone. You guys have a great week out there in the land of the old realm. We will speak to you next week. Thanks for joining us, and go and get your tickets for Melbourne and Michelle Gibson.
Yep.
Live on our
Below.
website.
Yep.
Yep.
Stay awesome, guys. See
Lots of
ya.
love, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining us.